Welcome to Real Estate Sit Down. My name is Blair Berg, and today we have Ian Haug on. Again, he's becoming almost a regular co-host on the show. And we're going to be talking about winning in multiples, which right now in this market is huge. So welcome back, Ian.
Thanks for having me, man. I think that, this is our third podcast and third different setting.
Yep. Yeah.
But this one's home now.
I think we'll be in the studio for a while, so get comfortable. But yeah, winning in multiples. I know a lot of people right now think, oh, the interest rates are too high. There's no way properties are going to multiples.
Yep.
I would say almost every deal I'm winning is in multiples right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same here. And pretty much every agent we've talked about this in team meetings, and we've talked about it, any chance we kind of get when we're talking one-on-one in the office. Pretty much under the price point of $750 and even higher if it's priced correctly, you're seeing at least 3 to 5 offers on the table. So you're competing against 3, 4, 5 people at a minimum, and we're even seeing more than that sometimes too at lower price points. It can be 10 to 12, right?
And I think we're going to start seeing too a lot of lenders, and we spoke with our lender yesterday, are rolling out a new 1% down conventional loan for people who are normally FHA eligible. So I think that's going to increase the competition a little bit too. So that should be interesting to see. So just hopping right into it, and we'll talk about it, but I don't think we're going to stay on it for very long because this one's obvious.
Sure.
Purchase price. I'm just throwing that out there so people, highest purchase price is probably the biggest thing to help you win in multiples. Is the higher you can go, but it's not the only thing. So I just wanted to get that out there because
totally. Yeah, you're right. And the purchase agreement itself, it's going to be the entire package. Closing date matters, your percentage down matters, your financing matters. But obviously the big one is purchase price. And I still have clients ask me, should we be writing to a letter to the sellers? Should we, I can do a quick close. I can do it 3 days earlier than 30 days. And, genuinely, sometimes those little differences do matter, but the purchase price needs to be in correlation with those other terms. You can't be 10, 15 grand under the next offer and hope that you're, bumping your closing date up a week is going to carry that offer to the finish line. It won't. So yeah, you're right. Purchase price is going to be the determining factor in 99% of the cases, right?
Yeah. So that being said, though, yes, highest purchase price. But what we're going to talk about mostly today is helping you get over that last hurdle. Let's say you're third or second place with purchase price. Yep. Maybe some of these things can help you leapfrog the next group that might be ahead of you. So just kind of like moving down. And the way I kind of structured it in my head is like I always kind of go through the purchase agreement and kind of say, here's where we can make some adjustments to kind of help you win. So let me start at the top.
Yep.
Earnest money. And I guess, for people that aren't familiar with earnest money, it's the money you put down, pretty much your down payment. It's going to go towards your purchase at the end of the sale. I don't really place a lot of stock on earnest money unless the buyer's like making it non-refundable. There is, the more you put down, the more skin in the game people think you have. But what a lot of people don't realize is how hard it actually is to lose your earnest money. That's maybe a lot of people don't know that, but
yeah, I agree with that. So, I look at it the same way on the listing side. If we have 2 offers on the table and they have identical terms, and the difference is maybe somebody has $10,000 earnest money and somebody has $8,000 in earnest money, but the other offer has 20% financing, the other one is 5% financing. You're probably looking at those other terms before you're looking at that earnest money. So yes, a typical good rule of thumb that I use and that I tell my clients is if we are not in multiples by the off chance, 1% is a pretty good rule of thumb. So $300,000 property, we're going to submit, $3,000 in earnest money. And if we're in multiples, that number goes up. And it typically gets closer to 2%, and we usually end up rounding it off. So once again, $300,000 purchase price, usually bumping that up to $5,000+. And yeah, something to keep in mind too with that earnest money is, you're right, it is hard to lose it. We have our contingency periods usually. That's probably something that we're going to get to too as we move forward in this conversation. But with that inspection contingency period, if for any reason you find something during the inspection that is too big to negotiate, and you need to back out, that earnest money is protected. So it takes a few days to get refunded. You can move on with your search. But you're right. On the list side, earnest money, it's nice to know that you have a little bit of insurance if for any reason the buyers were to back out, last minute, so you can hold that in damages. But other than that, it's kind of it's a term where you need to play ball. You can't just submit $1,000 in earnest money. You need to bump that number up a little bit, but it isn't usually a determining factor.
Yeah,
right?
And I would say so it is on the list of things you can do, but I'd say it's a lot lower than a lot of the ones we're going to talk about. Yep. But like I said, I do think like the only time my ears really perk up as a listing agent when I see it is if they've checked the non-refundable box. Like it's
Agreed.
Seller will retain. Then it's a little bit different because it's like if they try and back out for any reason, my seller has a chance to keep that earnest money. So then then there's more stock in the game. But yeah, I'd say I always tell my agent, I tell my clients we're going to start at 1%.
Yep.
Generally. So then kind of moving down, financing. So obviously cash is always king.
100%.
So that's what you're looking for. I mean, I know for some people, because cash is safer, even if the cash is like maybe 10 grand lower than the top one, but the top one might be FHA or conventional loan.
Yep.
I kind of tell them like, consider it, because when you take into account appraisals, if it appraises low, you might be negotiating back again with that FHA or that conventional loan. So that might be worth not having that headache down the road if you go with cash.
Right. Yeah, you're 100% right. So for the consumers that are listening that might not know the difference between a strong conventional offer or a conventional offer versus cash, the reason cash is king is you're right. It doesn't have to jump through those hoops of your loan getting processed. Mm-hmm. So you get to take all that away. All you do is provide a proof of funds from your financial institution stating that you have the financial capability to purchase the property with cash. And I mean, obviously, that's incredibly appealing to the sellers to not have to worry about appraisal, not have to worry about pushing the closing date because you didn't get your shit into your lender quick enough, things like that. So it goes cash is king, and then behind that, strong conventional offers.
Yep. Yeah. And with that too, and being cash, you can close quicker, which closing date is another one.
Yep.
So, I mean, I usually tell my clients, if you're using a mortgage, to be safe, I just say 30 days. 30 days to close. I know some lenders will do 21. Some of them can do 2 weeks, but that I think is really pushing it for a lot of lenders, especially when things are busy.
Yeah, there are a few that can get it done, but emphasis on a few.
Yeah.
Right? It's only a handful.
And I mean, when you're doing cash, you really only have to wait for title work, really. And this past year, I've done 2 cash deals that got done in 5 days.
Right.
And that you cannot do with a loan.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So that always helps too. And then obviously it's unfortunate, but along with FHA, VA loans, a lot of times I think people turn their nose up at that because the appraisal portion is so strict. So a lot of listeners are like, yeah, this is a strong VA loan, but they're not putting any money down. So they're like, they don't have a lot of skin in the game. And then like in the appraisal, like if we got peeling paint and stuff, it might pop for that. So it's like, you might want to go with this cash one, this conventional one. And it's really too bad for veterans because.
Right. So our lenders, Colin and Matt with Flex Mortgage, they'll tell you that VA does get a bad rap. It gets lumped in with FHA when typically it actually isn't as strict.
Correct.
It isn't as strict as a FHA, but it gets lumped in every time. So on paper, unfortunately, in multiple offer situations, even though VA loans are an incredible loan program, and remind me to come back to that too on the VA topic. But even though they're an incredible loan program, they've gotten a bad rap over the last 7-8 years now that we've been in multiple offer situations. They get lumped in with FHA when they shouldn't necessarily. But on the topic of VA loans too, and on the topic of multiple offers, there's been plenty of times where when we're talking about the purchase agreement as a whole and talking about all the terms that are laid out, there's been plenty of times where VA offers have gotten accepted because of their background and because of the service that they've.
Exactly. Yeah, I have seen a lot of people say, especially veteran to veteran.
100%.
I've seen veteran sellers say like, wow, I'm willing to work with a VA loan because I bought this myself on a VA.
And you love to see that. It's an awesome connection, and it's such a smooth transaction with the sellers too.
Yeah.
It's
there's already some mutual respect there, which is kind of hard to foster right now, because any slight like, hey, can we get this fixed, or hey, is your buyer willing to do X? I don't know. It seems like this year especially that the slightest change or ask, either side is just offended.
I know. Yeah. Sellers have gotten greedy, and buyers think that they're owed something because they have usually come up in purchase price quite a bit. They said, hey, we're paying $20K over asking for this. We should be able to have some pull in X, whatever it is. But yeah, both sides can get a little greedy from their different perspectives.
Well, it's like, sure. It helps. I always say, like, put yourself in the other side's shoes and like think about what you're asking or what is going on. Cause it's like, a lot of times it's not that big of a deal. Right. We both want to get the house sold. You want to move in. We want to sell it.
Exactly.
Like it'll be fine.
And I love that perspective too. And I tell my clients that all the time. As soon as we hash out the initial negotiations of the purchase agreement itself, and then usually during the inspection period, even during the inspection period before we start negotiations there, as soon as we have signatures from both parties, we're all rowing in the same direction. You guys want to buy it. They want to sell it. We agreed on terms. How can we find a solution to move forward? But yeah, going back to the multiple offer topic, the most important part is to obviously secure the property.
Yeah.
Right? So moving forward from there, there's usually always a solution to be had. It's very, very rare that a deal gets canceled or a deal blows up because the sellers and buyers are not on the same page. In my opinion, the offer that we submit right away, it's already setting those expectations as we move forward. And because we're competing with 5 other offers, I'm calling the listing agent saying, hey, we're not going to nickel and dime you on the inspection. I've talked to my clients about it. We know the property's in good shape. We anticipate this inspection to go smoothly, unless something catastrophic pops up, which is incredibly rare too.
Exactly. And then I was going to save this for the end, but I feel like since we're talking about finance right now, I just want to dive right into it.
Yep.
Appraisal gap guarantees, which has been kind of a hot topic in my life, just because there are scenarios where they can be good, but at the same time, you have to be careful that you're fully educating your buyers on like what an appraisal gap guarantee means, because they'll always come back to you and say, well, do you think it's going to appraise at this amount? Right. And then I'd say, I've run the comps. I think I know what the value is. Yep. I mean, as far as the market's concerned, this is what it's worth, but an appraiser might not see it the same way. So make sure for people out there that aren't sure what an appraisal gap guarantee is, let's say you buy a house, you offer $410 and it appraises at $400. Well, now you either have to cover that difference in cash, so $10,000, or you go back to the negotiating table and you get the seller to come down to $400, or you meet somewhere in the middle, a combination of the two.
Yep.
Or if you offer an appraisal gap guarantee, you could write in verbiage saying, we're offering $410 with an appraisal gap guarantee of up to $10,000. Yep. So saying if it comes in at $400, the appraisal, then you are saying, I will and I am able to cover that $10,000 in cash.
Exactly. So in the event of a low appraisal, you're going to bring X dollars to the table to cover that gap. And if there's an even larger gap on top of that, let's say it comes in at $398 and you brought 10, you said you were going to bring that 10 grand, then you drop that purchase price to $398 and then bring that extra 10 grand to the sellers.
Exactly. Yep. So, and that's another thing that I think that's one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
In winning in multiples right now. And for a while it was very safe because homes were appraising because the market was just going nuts.
Yep.
Things are price wise, interest rate wise are like kind of have been leveling for a while. So, I mean, I had a situation recently where we went under contract. In negotiations, they wanted us to give an appraisal gap guarantee.
Yep.
And I just informed my buyer he was considering it, I just said, it's your money, it's your house. I can't put a price on how much you love it, but my comps are not showing that.
Yep.
So I would be very careful about signing that, just because if you do it, you will need to pay that, and I'm not seeing it. And it came back. So we actually came down a little bit in our purchase price offer, did not do the appraisal gap guarantee. It did not even appraise at that amount.
Sure.
So and I even it's implied, but I even put extra verbiage from my lender in it saying, this is not an appraisal gap guarantee, essentially. Right. So we won't be paying the extra. So yeah, I'm glad that we did that. And then we kind of split the difference.
Yeah.
But
and honestly, we probably should have started this entire conversation with this piece here. So to back up to really the beginning is, as agents, we need to be educating our buyers from the get-go about what the process looks like, what their options are when submitting an offer, and just what the current market conditions are going to bring and what they are up against. And it's nothing to be scared of. It just, consumers need to know what this market entails. They need to know that if they're shopping in Bloomington at $325,000, they are going to see multiple offers as long as that property is priced correctly from the beginning.
Yeah.
And from there, you need to go through the terms of the offer and lay it out for your buyers. Agents, please, 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 you need to give your clients all the options. I tell my clients, I'm like, hey, I don't think you should waive your inspection. I would never recommend that. But if you want to, it's your option. If you guys, we know the property's in great shape. If you think waiving your inspection is something that you're comfortable with, and I already talked to the listing agent, they said, if you waive your inspection, we're going to get it done. That's your choice. Because there's too many times, and I've heard this from too many agents that are talking to their clients after they lose in multiples, and they say, oh, well, I would have done an appraisal gap coverage. I didn't know we could do that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I would have shortened my inspection contingency period. I didn't know we could do that.
And that's essentially, like I was saying too, because we become so familiar with the stuff that I think it becomes second nature, and then we forget that the clients don't know that.
Yep.
So that's why when I'm kind of breaking down the purchase agreement, that's where I'm like, this is where we can do something. This is where we can do something else. This is where we can, help the seller out a little bit to make our offer more desirable, so that they're fully educated on it and they know their options.
Exactly. And also, as agents, pick up the damn phone and call the listing agent and poke and pry as much as you possibly can and get as much information as you really can. As long as it's not dual agency, go for it.
Yeah.
And just let them talk, have that conversation. Say, can you ask your sellers what it would take for us to get our offer accepted tonight and beat out the other three offers?
Yep.
What does that price look like? What do those terms look like? I don't know if my buyers are willing to do it, but I'd love the opportunity to. We have X financing. They're flexible on close date. Bring me some terms and I'll see if I can write your seller an offer that they would accept right away. It's a win-win situation.
Yep.
But how many times on the listing side do we see agents submit an offer, it goes to your email, you never got a call, you never got showing
might end up in your spam. Things with attachments 100%. End up in spam all the time.
Absolutely. And yeah, once again, on the listing side, you better be the agent that's checking your spam inbox if you have a listing, because there are a million agents out there that will not pick up the phone. And also, texting is not picking up the phone.
Yeah.
Call them.
Yep.
And especially when you're trying to get information out of a listing agent to figure out what it's going to take to secure the property for your buyers, don't give them time to think over a text. Don't say, hey, what's this going to take? And have them go, oh, how should I handle this? Pick up the phone and say, hey, how's our offer looking compared to the other two?
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think my greatest skill set truly as an agent is just my communication skills, because I do think and my friends probably don't like this about me, I'm a phone guy. Like, sure. I like to call people, because I don't like to be texting for, like, when we're trying to make plans for a night or something, I'm like, and we're texting back and forth, I'm like, can I just call you and we'll just figure this out in like a second?
Hash it out.
Yeah. Like,
don't give them time. Don't give them time to fumble. Don't give them time for another offer to roll in.
Yeah. And I'm a huge phone call guy. So, and like my script essentially when I'm leaving, so right when I leave the showing, I'm like, hey, if you're interested enough in this that you want me to follow up with the listing agent, I will call them on my ride home.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes. So I call. And I'll say like, hey, Ian, this is Blair from EXP. Just showed your listing on 123 Easy Street, and I got a very, very interested buyer. I'd love to pick your brain about it. And they're usually pretty happy to hear they got an interested buyer on the line.
Yep.
And I just go, so like, first of all, how's traffic? How's the traffic in the house? Do you have any offers in hand?
Yep.
And they'll usually indulge that and let me know. And I think a lot of them will beef up the numbers a little bit. They'll be like, yeah, we got one in hand, but like 3 people said they're going to.
Yeah, we've got some vultures circling. So
yeah,
it's
like, so you have one in hand.
How many do you have on the table is the question to ask. How many do you have in hand?
Yeah, so how many do you have in hand? And they'll usually give you, we have 2 in hand, 3 are planning to write, and then I haven't heard back from like a bunch. But and then my next question is, what is the most important things to your sellers in getting a deal done? Because I don't think enough people are asking that, and they aren't figuring out they have a preferred close date. They have, they want to rent back or something. So figuring that out. And then, like I said, and then once we get good rapport going, and I'll say, you know what, Ian, while we're talking about it, what would it, it's a Friday. I'm sure your sellers would love to enjoy their weekend. We'd all like to get this done with. What could I do right now? And I try to put it even on me. Like I say, like, what can I do to get my buyer locked up in this tonight?
Yeah.
Like, what can we do so we can get the rest of the weekend done with? And they'll generally like, you know what? I don't know. Let me talk to my sellers and see what I can do.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what got it done this last time. And he even said, he goes, well, I got an offer just now, but he never called me. And I tried to call him, he didn't answer. So, and we got it locked up that night before that agent could even get a hold of the guy who submitted an offer.
I mean, just think about how lazy this is. I'm thinking of it from the consumer standpoint too.
Imagine explaining that to one of your clients. Like, we didn't get it because I submitted it without calling, and then I didn't answer his phone call when he called me back.
Right. Imagine working with somebody. Imagine submitting an offer and not knowing how many offers are on the table, not knowing what the seller's preferred closing date is, not knowing what's important to the sellers, and just saying, oh yeah, let's just come in completely blind and send the offer to them. Maybe shoot them a text and say, hey, just sent you an offer. It's like the market is too competitive, and there are enough agents making these phone calls where if you're an agent that is not having these conversations, you are going to continue to lose out in multiples, and hurts your clients. It hurts your business, and the amount of time it takes already in a competitive market to work with buyers and to get your offer accepted, because let's be honest, some clients they need to lose a couple. They're, you say, hey, I talked to the listing agent. If we come in 15 grand over ask, this is ours. And they're like, I want to do 10. Like, okay. And then you lose out, which is fine. Yeah. The property is only worth as much as you want to pay for it. Yeah. Right. But you need to give yourself a fighting chance. You need to give your clients a fighting chance. You need to pick up the phone. You need to have this conversation. And guess what? There are plenty of agents out there too that'll say, my sellers aren't willing to disclose. Hey, we want to wait through the weekend.
Yeah.
And from there, all you can do is continue to pester, continue to harass in a gentle way, and say, hey, how many offers do you have on the table now? Hey, how's our offer looking? Hey, if we came up to 565, would that put us in first place?
Yep.
Asking these questions and continuing to ask them. Don't make one phone call, have them say, yeah, we're not willing to disclose, and then say, okay.
Yep.
Have a good weekend. I'll talk to you on Sunday when I get the email that we didn't get it.
Yeah, and when I hear like, oh, I got this offer, but the agent never called. If you don't call, I don't even know how you know what to write up in an offer. Because how do you know what the seller,
you were coming in completely blind.
Because if there's already offers on the table, I generally tell buyers that depending on if they have multiples, rule of thumb says at least 1% above ask for every offer in hand.
Yep.
Somewhere around there, generally. I mean, it varies. But if you don't even call and ask, how do you even know what to write?
Exactly.
Or how do you know what their preferred? How do you even know the close date you wrote is going to work?
Right. Exactly.
You got to at least figure out what they want for a close date.
Yeah. Experienced agents, we kind of know. I mean, I know both me and you were doing all of these things that we're talking about, and we typically know as well. Hey, if I know there's 5 offers on the table, I know 2 are probably competitive. 3 are probably 10 to 15 grand, or in that 5 to 15 grand margin. And there's usually just 1 or 2 at the top of the pack. Yep. And so even if this is the way I look at it, even if there's 22 offers on the table, if there's 15 offers on the table, a dozen offers on the table, it doesn't matter because I know that there's only one or two at the top of the pack.
Yeah.
And so I want to know
those. You're not beating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just want to know what those two offers are. So really, there might be 12 offers on the table, but I'm competing against one or two. And so those are the offers that I'm trying to figure out how those are structured and how we can beat them.
Yeah.
And also something to keep in mind, as a listing agent, I love when buyers agents come and ask me those questions because guess what? As long as my sellers give me the thumbs up to disclose certain terms, it's a win-win. If I say, hey, if my client said, if you guys come in at X and you give us this closing date, and if you give us an appraisal gap coverage and you shorten your inspection contingency to 3 days, they'll sign off on it and they'll be dancing around their kitchen tonight. That's a win-win.
And that party is probably going to be the easy one to work with throughout because they were willing to communicate.
Absolutely.
So it's like, if you struggle to get someone on the phone just to get their offer accepted, what are they going to act like when they get their offer accepted and you're trying to, how's the appraisal going?
Yep.
How'd the inspection go? Well,
Yep.
what are they just going to text you what they want on the inspection?
Right.
So it's like, you have to have communication.
Yep.
That's like, probably we should have started with that. That's like number one, how you win in multiples.
Yeah.
In my case, I would say.
You're right. It goes educating your clients and letting them know their options. And then it's so much relies on heavy communication with the listing agent and poking and prying and making sure you're structuring your offer to appeal to the sellers. And obviously, a lot of that depends on what your buyers want to do. And like I said, sometimes they will lose out because they're not willing to do what it takes to get it done, but that's okay too. And I know that's a conversation me and you both have with our clients is, if we don't have a lot of information and we know a few terms, because even if they don't give us a lot of information, it's usually surrounding purchase price, right? Mm-hmm. And so how we describe it is, I want you to submit your highest and best offer. So if we lose out by $100, you can walk away and say, okay, I wasn't willing to pay that price. I don't care. We're moving on to the next one.
And that's what I say too, is when I know it's a heavy multiple situation, like, oh, we have 8 offers in hand.
Yep.
I will have a conversation with my buyer and obviously get their permission to, disclose this information, but I'll say, what is the maximum amount you're willing to pay for this house? And let's say it's at 300, they're like 315, no higher than that. Yep. So they're like, we're planning to write at 315. So in the conversation with listening, I'll say, hey, I know you got 8 offers in hand, so I don't waste your time and I don't waste my time. If I wrote at 315, is that something your sellers are even going to entertain, or should I just save the time, not do the paperwork? And then they'll usually be like, oh yeah, no, write it. That's a strong offer. And that's a good indicator of you might even be winning at that point. Or they'll be like, don't waste your time.
Exactly.
Like, we're already 50,000 over. Don't even bother.
Exactly. And those responses are just such great indicators too of where you need to come in at. And I love asking that question when they're not giving me a lot of information. They're like, we're not willing to disclose. Just give me your highest and best. Well, if we come in at 515, is that worth submitting? No, it's not. Or yeah, go ahead and submit it. We'll see. And if even the tone of, yeah, it's okay. It's like, I know we're missing somewhere. I know we're close on purchase price, close on a couple terms. So I'll say, hey, I think 525, 520 would, maybe get us a little bit closer. And then once again, it's just giving your clients those options and seeing what they're willing to do to secure that property.
Well, exactly. I was going to say, I think it's a huge education spot for your clients because if they're like, nah, it's not even worth it at 315, don't do it. Then you can go back and say, hey, it's not going to happen. We're too low on purchase price. So either they're going to have, if they really love it, then maybe they reconsider. Maybe they're like, oh, well, actually we do 325 or something like that. Or like for the next one, they're more prepared to like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be looking at 300. Maybe we should be looking at 275.
Right.
So we can go to 315.
Right.
Or whatever. It's a good teaching moment for them. There's another episode too good to cut short. So make sure you come back next week for part 2 of Realtors revealing their secrets to winning in multiple offers. And don't forget to like and subscribe.